Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show.
On a beach in the sand, I think of you. I think of you. Did you realize I love you all my life? And when you're gone, I'm more alone.
Welcome back. I am Curt Williams, Jr., author and spiritualist. And today, I have another story for you. When I tell these stories, the reason I tell the stories is because they all have a spirituality component to them. It's the kind of thing where I'm trying to give people examples so that they can look at their own lives and say, hey, something like that happened to me. Everybody has a spirit. The difference is that the spiritualist understands that the spirit is the primary aspect, meaning that the spirit is here to use an avatar to do its work. Once you put the two of those together, then you will be led by your spirit and your life will turn out exactly the way it had been planned during the Akashic record part of the planning of your life. Without you realizing it, your spirit plans on what your life is going to be. The purpose being is that the creator of the universe is also a learning thing. It learns, but the way it learns, one of the ways that it learns now is through beings with free will. The creator of the universe uses little parts of himself that we call spirits to control an avatar, and through these avatars the big chief up there can learn what it is to be crazy, almost to be a biological being in a beautiful setting like Earth. For some reason the creator gets information like this. And I think what it is that the creator is growing. The cosmos is growing. And in order for it to grow, the creator himself has to make his own spirit, makes himself more powerful by creating small aspects of himself and then edifying those aspects. That's how God grows. All of these stories that I tell have a spiritual component. Your life has a spiritual component. You're going to see that, hey, things, synchronicities, they may call them, things happen in your life to let you know that, hey, there is something out there that is in control of all this, along with your brain. Your brain is in control, but your brain is going to make mistakes. The reason your brain makes mistakes is because the way the system is set up so you do not listen to your spirit. The way the system is set up is that you listen to what power structures want you to listen to. They don't want you to be an independent spirit. They want you to go to school and learn how to be a good citizen from that standpoint, and they want you to go to church and learn how to be a good saint or a good person in that power structure. As long as the pastor is in charge of your knowledge, then you will always be subservient to the pastor. So what I'm trying to do here is bypass the pastors. And ultimately the pastors are smart enough. I believe they understand all this. And they're smart enough to know, hey, if I'm to stay ahead of my congregation, then I want to elevate the congregation, not hold them back. So let me begin with today's story. This is a situation that happened about, I say, the year 1979, when I was around about 20 years old. And I call this one death row. This is a situation where I could have very well been accused of killing, murdering a child. And it's my spirit that saved me from that fate. A lot of times there are people who are wrongly accused of things, and that's why I don't believe in the death penalty, because you find out later on that this person had nothing to do with it, and there's no coming back from some of those executions. So this is a situation where I came this close, in my opinion anyway, to being on that list. It's a very tragic and very sad story. And it goes like this. I'm from a city, Pasadena. Right above Pasadena is another city called Altadena, and that's where I was raised. I lived on a street 5 houses from a canyon going into the mountains near Jet Propulsion Laboratories. It's that area right there. And at the time, I worked at a grocery store right up the street. This event started when I saw a child about 5 years old in the store where I was working, and he had a dog, a pit bull, and this pit bull the boy was beating on the pit bull and yelling and shouting at the pit bull. And the pit bull was just sitting there letting the boy beating him. He was beating. And I said, boy, stop hitting that dog. And dogs aren't supposed to be in the store anyway. Get the dog out the store. So the boy looked at me, and like he understood exactly what I was talking about. I was a very intelligent kid. And so he grabbed the dog and yelled at the dog and pulled the dog out the store. Now the dog stood in the doorway of the store. The dog did not take his eyes off of that boy for some reason. And then the boy grabbed his candy or whatever, and he got in line to make his purchase. When he got up to the cashier, I rang up his stuff, and it came to about $1.37, and I said, that'd be $1.37. And he just looked at me. And I looked at him, and I'm like, it's $1.37. And he just stared. I said, boy, do you have any money? He looked at me like he didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, you don't have any money? Boy, get out the store. Take it, get out the store. Yeah, blah, come on, give me a break. What are you doing? So he walked on out the store and went on down the street. Later on that night, I saw the boy again. But this time, he was with his parents. And I said, there's that boy. And the father looked at me. And he said, you saw this boy? I said, yeah, he was in the store earlier with his dog. Just then, his mother started shaking. Like, I didn't know what was going on with them. Maybe he didn't have permission or something. But she started shaking. And he looked at her and they walked out. Come to find out, I lived in a house and there was a private drive right next to me. And this couple and their son lived directly behind me. There were 5 houses behind mine, and they actually lived right behind me. What I did not know is that boy wasn't 5 years old. The boy was 2. The reason the boy couldn't communicate because he couldn't talk yet. He could yell and scream, but he couldn't articulate words yet. But for some reason he was in that store, and I guess he just saw other people having items and put them on the counter, so he just did. This was the most outstanding little baby I've ever seen. He was as smart as you could. He was way too smart for his years. And the dog knew it was a toddler, and the dog was not about to take his eyes off of this little baby. Come to find out, his mother worked nights and she would sleep during the day, and the boy would sneak out the house. And the dog would sneak with him just to protect. He was his protector. And they came on up to the store, so I found this out much later. And then something happened to where his dogs attacked my Doberman pinchers and pretty much killed my Doberman. And, it was like, now I'm feeling some kind of way because the man's dogs, pit bulls, killed my male Doberman. His name was Satan. So I had a little kind of feeling about the man, but not enough to be a problem, but still keep in mind that we had this little thing, because, So anyway, a couple of weeks later, I was mowing my front lawn, and it's a pretty big lawn, and when I began to mow it, I saw the boy again who was 2 years old, and I didn't know it. I'm thinking he's 5 or 6. I saw him and his dog standing at the top of the drive. Now, had I known he was as young as he was, I would have grabbed him immediately and took him home. But I didn't know. Didn't know he was that young. And he was standing out there, and then I kept mowing the lawn, and that was that. A couple of hours later, I saw the dog, and the dog was standing there staring at me as if he was trying to tell me something. And I just looked at him, and I was wondering where the boy was, and the thing that really bothered me the most at this particular time is I did not know which way the dog came from. I couldn't tell if the dog came from the canyon or from up the street because this boy was missing. At this point, he was missing, and I didn't know from which way he was missing because just then his mother jumped in her car and came roaring up the private drive, and she's, "Have you seen my son?" And I was like, "No, I haven't seen him. I saw him and the dog up here earlier." And so she just skidded off, driving through the neighborhood, trying to find this boy. And so I gathered up some of the kids, about 7 kids, and I said, "Okay, guys, we're going to help her find her son." And they knew they were the ones that told me how young he was. And the boy was so rambunctious and powerfully spirited that they said he had gone down into a sewer one time, playing around. Very powerful spirit was this child. So those other boys in the neighborhood are the ones that told me how young he really was. Had I known how young he was, he would not have been missing at that particular time. So I gathered up 7 boys and we went down into the canyon just in case he had gone down there. And when we got down to the base of the canyon, I sent all the boys, said, I want you guys to walk fast as you can up this canyon for about an hour. If you don't see anything, come on back. I went the other way by myself. Now, I told you that my spirit, if I ever lose anything, my spirit will tell me where it is. This was years ago before I knew I was a spiritualist, but I'm sure I had the ability to know where something was, and now I'm trying to find this boy. So they walked up the canyon, and I walked down the other way towards what's called Devil's Gate Dam, where they had some water in a pond. And it became very dire and horrifying when later on that afternoon I got a knock on the door, and it was the police and the father. Come to find out, I was the last person to see that baby boy. I was the last person to see him, and all I could do was tell them that I saw him with his dog in the driveway. And when I sat down to have some lemonade, all I saw was the dog. It was hard. What was hard, like I said, I could not tell which way that dog, I couldn't tell the police from which way they came. And the sweet man, he was trying to find his son and the police. Well, they searched my property, they searched the garage and everything, they went through everything, and they ended up searching every house in the neighborhood. After a couple of days, this became a national story. It was on the news everywhere, and volunteers were starting to come in because they had to find this boy. Once a day, they would go to each house because they searched each house every day. And then they set up a triage at the local elementary school. So now you had 500 people searching, for this one child. And then people from all over started driving into the city just to be a part of this search. It became a very big deal. There was a 2-year-old child that was missing in Altadena, California, and I was the last one to see him. And so I sent those boys up the canyon to search, and I went that way. Finally, I walked for a couple of miles, and then I just sat down. I sat down by a pond, and I said, well, what am I doing way out here? I mean, the boy could be anywhere. And just then my spirit said, Curt, get out of here, fast. And I didn't know what that meant, but I'm thinking, ooh, they must have found him or something. I said, get out of here. And so I abruptly got up and kind of rushed back up, only to find out that the boy hadn't been found at all. And the search had begun. There were rumors that they had seen him up that part of town, and everything. And I had neglected to tell the police and everything that I sent a search party through the canyon, because I didn't think it was relevant since he had been seen out there. So after about 5 or 6 days, and it's on the news, and hundreds of people merging onto the neighborhood, they had cars sitting down by the canyon. They had cars, around. Just it's amazing the way people kind of gravitate towards a story like that. I mean, it's like there was a boy missing, and people just, for some reason, got in their cars and like, where are we going today? We're going to Altadena just to be, maybe we can bring some positive energy or something. I don't know. It's a very mysterious thing, the way people just came to that part of town. I'll never forget, it was like a Sunday morning, and I had a football game on, and I was sitting near the window when I heard a sound I'll never forget. It was the boy's mother, and she screamed in a horrific fashion. The kind of scream that you just knew exactly what the reasons for that scream was. We knew. And there was a lot of people back there trying to keep that family comforted. But when she screamed out like that, you just knew something very tragic had happened. And then you heard cars skidding from the corner, racing up the street. So you knew somewhere that boy was found. And he was found in such a way that the outcome was extremely tragic. So I turned on the news to find out what happened. And there it was. The boy was found by a couple on a horseback. They were riding this horse, and all of a sudden they looked down into this pond. And they saw the water had cleared, and they saw him. What happened is that he took his clothes off to go swimming, and he jumped in the water, and they could tell by the way he was tangled into the shrubbery that he was trying to reach to get out, and he didn't make it, and he passed away there. Now, what makes this story a spiritual story for me, and the reason I call this story Death Row, is because the pond where they found that boy, remember when I said I went for this search and I sent the boys up that way in the canyon, I went that way, then I sat down to rest? The pond that they found that boy in was 5 feet in front of where I sat down to rest. When I sat down to rest, the baby boy was right down there in the water. If I had taken 2 steps further, I would have seen the clothes. If I had seen the clothes, I would have took another step and I would have saw the boy, and I would have jumped in there and grabbed him. Or I would have known that it was too late, and I would have rushed out of that canyon to get the police, to get somebody, tell somebody I found him. He's down here. The horrifying part of this story is the fact that I was the last person to see the boy, the baby, the toddler. I was the last one to see the toddler alive, 2 miles away in front of my house. What are the chances that I'm going to see him with his dog, and then I'm going to go into a canyon and send boys that way, and I go that way, and I walk right straight down there, right to the point where he was? Out of all the places in the city that I could have looked, I didn't know which way he went. I could have looked this way, that way. How in the hell am I going to walk right down to where that boy actually was and then find him? They would have looked at me like the only way I could have found him is if I knew where he was. I have family members that would have thought I was guilty. I would have gone to trial, and a prosecutor would have said, how in the hell is he going to see somebody 2 miles away and just magically walk right up to him? There is no way in hell they would have believed me. Had I found that child, I would have been on death row. I couldn't have explained that I just happened to walk down and find him. Even if I walked closer and my footsteps were there, my footprints were there, I would have been. I feel horrible about the child. Had I known he was 2 years old, this never would have happened. Had I known he was a toddler, as soon as I saw him in the driveway with the dog, I would have grabbed him and took him home then. That is the tragic part about this whole story. My whole thing, my reason for telling this story is how my spirit understood. My spirit said, okay, Curt, just to show you something, I must show you right where the boy is. Because my spirit will tell me where, if I ask my spirit where something is, it'll tell me. I'm going to show you right where the boy is, but I'm not going to let you find him. Because if you do, that will be the end of your life. If anybody recognizes this story, I apologize for bringing it back up. And hopefully the parents will never see what I'm talking about, because I don't even want them to know I was that close. I don't want them to even know I could have prevented this had I known he was as young as he was. There's no way I would have let a toddler run around, by itself like that. I didn't know I thought he was much older, because he just seemed like it, and I didn't know the circumstances. But like I said, I have stories of where my spirit has stepped in to do a lot of things, and not all of them are good stories. A couple of them are pretty bad. None as bad as this one, But God bless that child. He was the most amazing little child I've ever known. And if he had grown up, he would have been something, because even as a 2-year-old, his spirit was powerful. Very powerful spirit. And I know ultimately he would be all right. Thank you guys for listening to the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Right there, right there.
Subscribe and push the like button.